Hey, Magic fans, welcome back. This is your captain speaking here on Capnclydes MTG. It's official. MetaZoo has been shut down. So before we get into it, don't forget, comment, like, subscribe, hit that notification bell. The comments down below are going to feed that YouTube algorithm. And the cheap way to do it is just subscribe and watch some videos. Really do appreciate it. But there's links in the description to eBay, TCG, Player Store. We're on Rumble. The membership thing's up and going. Help a brother out. But anyway, so let's get into it, and let's get into why it matters. So, for those of you who don't know, MetaZoo was a game, a CCG that came out around the 2020 era, took off rather well, and really targeted more of the Pokemon crowd um, than it did really anything else. It really wasn't on board with trying to, break into the Magic world as far as how it played or even how the art looked. But it was here for no other reason than to have a Pokemon variant, um, and actually came out and did rather well. However, as of today, well, actually, it'd be yesterday, time you guys see this video, January 29th, the trading card game publisher unexpectedly announced its closure today. You can see that right here. And this is very interesting. So if we look down here below at the actual thing, MetaZoo Games, a publisher of trading card games which became popular among some collectors during the pandemic, has announced its immediate shutdown. It is with a heavy heart that I must announce that effectively immediately MetaZoo Games will be closing and shutting down all its operations, MetaZoo founder Michael Waddle wrote on the company Discord. Now, Waddle explained that the company was facing logistics and product gridlocks that posed too great a challenge to the company for it to continue. Although he hoped that MetaZoo would continue as an IP at some point under new ownership. Shortly after the announcement, MetaZoo wiped its social media pages and shut down their official Discord. So, MetaZoo was founded in 2020, the collectible card trading game, heavily inspired by early Pokemon art and various cryptids and monsters from folklore. Now, the game grew exponentially during the vid pandemic, especially under DJ and music producer Steve Oski became an equal partner in the game. Although MetaZoo had a rule set and gameplay, it seemed to be drawing attention primarily from collectors that were looking for the next Pokemon trading card game or Magic the Gathering to invest in. So at the time of its closure, MetaZoo was working on several crossover projects, including one with Sanro featuring characters from Hello Kitty, and had just had its product added to the shelves at Target. The game was also set to be featured on an upcoming episode of Pawn Stars. So, very interesting. Um, in case you guys didn't know, the whole Hello Kitty thing, which is probably part of the downfall of this game, a lot of people like to blame TCG Player for this, and maybe you can, maybe you can't. You guys decide. But what basically happened was they partnered with TCG Player to do this Hello Kitty crossover, and um, the package, I guess, that TCG put together, they were doing a bundle sale or what have you, was hideously overpriced, causing no one to buy it. And then because TCG Player was stuck with it and nobody was ordering it, they then sold it way below MAT and crashed the market. Now, this isn't the first time something like this has happened. In the card world, you have to be careful when dealing with people like TCG Player or anyone else. For example, back when Channel Fireball was around, you guys probably remember that they tanked a Flesh and Blood release. I believe it was, I can't remember off the top of my head, but anyway, the Flesh and Blood release came out. They purposely held back inventory to drive prices up while the set was doing well, and then slowly leaked into the market, and then eventually dumped, causing everybody to be excited the product was out. But since the price had doubled, Monarch, that was what it was. It was the Monarch release. But because there was actually so much in the pipeline and they had so much of it, they sold a lot of the product at a very high price, causing a lot of it to tank. After which then just started a downward spiral, because as people were getting mad because they were spending $500 for these Monarch boxes, which slowly became, you know, 3 to 250, it closer to what their actual sell price was. People were losing money left and right, so then people stopped buying them, and it was just a disaster. So you really have to be careful if you're a TCG operation when you work with companies like this to make sure they don't undersell or oversell your product, depending on pricing and other things that can be very detrimental. Now, Flesh and Blood luckily was able to bounce back and survive that. MetaZoo, on the other hand, apparently could not survive what came from that. Now, there's also rumors that MetaZoo had some problem with, paying winners for their championships and other events. There's rumors they owed artists money for artwork, so forth and so on. So it's hard to say. That could also have been part of it. But at the end of the day, it probably just kind of boils down to bad management. And when I say that, it doesn't mean the managers were bad people. They weren't good at the math, and they didn't get the whole finance thing right, or what their product should be, how much they should be printing, and so forth and so on. Several of their sets struggled also before this due to overprinting, which is something that we talked about on this channel before, especially in Magic, which some people don't want to seem to recognize. But if you look at the history of MetaZoo, you will see that overprinting was the beginning of their downfall. And as they tried to claw their way back up, they had hope with all these crossover events, which were then mishandled by other people who sold for them, which is where their biggest problem came. And apparently, by the end of it, it was just not in the cards, pun intended, for them to survive due to how they managed their business, their print runs, what they charged, and how people charged for their product. So keep that in mind. As we go down here, we'll wrap it up with the very last part of the article. MetaZoo is one of the several recently launched card games that have made a splash, either as the game stores and with collectors. Some games like Flesh and Blood, which launched about a year before MetaZoo, have quickly built up a solid player base, and others like Disney Lorcana and the One Piece TCG seem to have long legs due to their associated IPs. However, some game store owners and industry watchers have wondered whether the new interest in trading card games is a boom or a bubble. We've had our talks about Lorcana. We've had our talks about Flesh and Blood. Well, we don't talk about Flesh and Blood too much. Flesh and Blood, I believe, is here to stay. That's good. Lorcana, I think it's pretty much here to stay because people just like the Disney thing. But I think as people put money into it, they're going to learn real quickly that it's not something you can put money into and expect to get anything out of it. It's going to be a game piece style game. The makers of it have said that they will print and continue printing all their product until it stops selling, which means no one wants it, which means it has no value because there's no demand. So remember that. Plus, the way they make their cards makes it very easy for people to make fakes, along with other things, which is also going to damage their product at some point in time, if at any time the cards actually become valuable. So with that said, we'll take one quick stroll. We'll see how this is affecting TCG Player. So on here, you can see that we have Flesh and Blood and all this other stuff. So if we go on here, we go up to MetaZoo, we'll see if they've had anything weird happening with their prices. We'll go to, so the First Nation box is about 150. You can see there's been some downturns. There's even a downturn today on the first edition booster box. However, and there's only been one sell today. It makes me wonder if people will actually start to buy these because this has been pretty steady. No sales today. If they'll buy these because they think they'll go up in price because they're out of print, or if they won't buy them because they're out of print. So again, this one's been pretty steady, no effect yet. We have the Hello Kitty cards. It doesn't look like the market has been bashed too hard. The Wilderness is down to, oh boy, it says $80, but you can buy them here for $39.95. Someone's already put 22 boxes up. Apparently this particular store has no faith and they are fire selling this product. So we're probably going to start seeing a lot of that. And by the end of the day, I think it's really going to matter is how many people really play, collect, and want the cards versus how many people actually don't care. Because as you can see, very Pokemon-ish style art, not the best in the world, but it is what it is. So I'll report back later. Once we see what happens, we'll probably give this another week or two or wait for another announcement before we revisit this. But as it states right now, due to poor management, MetaZoo has been declared dead. I hope Magic's watching and learning from other people's mistakes. So, with that said, guys, thanks a lot for watching. Sorry to interrupt the normal plan, but until next time, be kind. And as usual, I hope to see you across from the game table. And unfortunately, it won't be the MetaZoo table.